We'll call tonight's Committee of the Whole meeting to order for the City Council meeting on June the 1st, 2021. City Council should have the minutes from our May the 18th Committee of the Whole meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? If not, do I have a move to approve?
So move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the minutes are carried forth. Indian Pines Recreation Authority, Mayor Pro Tem Whitten.
Yes, sir. We have one vacancy. Term begins June 21, 2021 and ends June 20th, 2025. Cliff Knight has served 2 full terms as the incumbent. I would like to nominate Bradley Martin.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for Bradley Martin. Is there any conversation, questions? Hearing none, all in favor of Brad Martin, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries, and we'll affirm that later on in the meeting. Cox Road widening project striping discussion. There you go. Councilperson Dawson.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like for the council to consider tonight a resolution changing. Currently, Cox Road is slated to be 2 traffic lanes, 12 foot each, and 2 bike lanes, 6 foot each. And I would like for the council to consider a resolution tonight and give the citizens a chance to speak on it as well, and to discuss the possibility of restriping, instead of striping it that form once they finish paving, and restriping it with 2 trafficway lanes and 1 turn lane down the middle of Cox Road. I feel like that's safer, and I've gotten feedback from a lot of the citizens out there. I've also, the last couple of days, got a lot of feedback from the bike committee people, and I respect their thoughts on it. However, given my experience and what I've lived on Cox Road as well, and talking to my neighbors, they're very much in favor of the turn lane, and feel like it'd be much safer. And until you ride Cox Road regularly, or until you live out there, you can't. It's hard to understand what I'm speaking of. But we don't want to keep the bikes out, and with the turn lane, I feel like the bikes would have more room to ride, and would be safer for them as well. Because a stripe on the road is not going to keep an 18-wheeler from running over someone. And there's a lot of truck traffic on that road now, a lot more than there ever was. So I would just appreciate the council at least considering it tonight, consider a resolution, and vote your conscience on it. But that's what I'd like to see tonight,
Okay. Thank you, Tommy. Ms. Crouch, mechanically process, how would we go forward with this request from Councilperson?
Mechanically, it is a little bit confusing, so if everybody will bear with me. The city has an active contract with JLD Enterprises, which includes, as Councilperson Dawson explained, 2 12-foot travel lanes, 2 6-foot bike lanes on each side of Cox Road, and it also includes a multi-use path from Longleaf to Wire Road, which is a separated off-road 8-foot concrete path. So that's an active contract, and normally the council does not consider any items that would genuinely amend a contract unless staff is bringing it forward. In this instance, this is a matter of policy. To date myself quite a bit to my intern days, I drafted the original Auburn bicycle plan that went into Auburn 2020, as the staff giggles a little bit. I was an intern at the time, but this policy was born out of that document way back in the late 90s as we adopted it for Auburn 2020. And that was adopted by resolution as part of the plan. So that is the only adopted bike plan that we have today. There are other iterations, such as there's a bike path map on the city's website that has planned roads for bike lanes and bike paths and multi-use paths. All of our paths are on there. We have some references in some manuals, and then we also have the 2017 citywide traffic study. Don't confuse the date of 2017 with when it was presented to you, which was May of 2019, is when the council saw that in a workshop-style presentation. It also has a map that resides also with a connectivity plan that is being worked on right now that has not been adopted by the council either, and that goes with a Greenways master plan that I anticipate for the Auburn 2040 process that several committees will take up, and final decisions about those plans will be made at that time. So this is falling in a very interesting spot where we call this an informal policy. Staff uses a number of those documents to drive what we call guiding documents, and they drive capital project decisions and recommendations to the council. And so when we are typically designing road widenings or new roads, such as the Richland Road Connector, we design bike lanes in as part of that process. And so this is why procedurally this is unusual. So procedurally, what we would be looking for in a resolution is just a waiver of what we would term an informal policy. Because the council's never adopted an exact policy that said we must put bike lanes on Cox Road. What it said is we're going to try to install bike lanes everywhere. Various bike plans say we're going to do that. And that's the policy that staff has followed in my entire tenure with the city. The council's had robust discussion over the years about extra expense involved with this and so on. But currently tracking, we've had no other direction from this council, so that was designed in as part of a normal process. I think there was also some issues raised that we had many public meetings about the Cox Road widening. We did not. We had public meetings about the Cox and Wire roundabout. And City Engineer Fraser, did we even have a public meeting about that? I apologize, we had information out about the Cox and Wire roundabout. So there was not, you saw on Renew Opelika Road Phase 4 that's under construction now, we had a drop by public meetings about it where the public could drop by and provide input. There were not these such meetings about Cox Road. But the reason there were not is it's a normal part of our design plans to also include it, and we weren't doing a big modification, just a slight widening. And I think it's also important, and the city engineer will correct me, she'll nod or correct me, Cox Road was extremely narrow prior to the widening, so some people have asked why did you widen it and not make it 4 lanes or 6 lanes or whatever you wanted to do? Part of it was very narrow. It was an old country road not designed by the city. It had different curves and elevations that don't meet current engineering standards. So part of that was to improve a variety of things about Cox Road and make travel on it more easy. I kind of liken it to US Highway 280, where you have the old side of the road that was never modified and the new side that was kind of flattened out and a little more spacious and you could see better and all those things. That's part of what this project was for. So one of the other important things is staff has informed you a few times that there's a traffic study that was performed, and it didn't warrant putting in what we call, and a draft resolution would call, a two-way left turn lane. You call it suicide lane, you call it multi-directional turn lane, same thing. Two-way left turn lane. And the notion is there was no traffic study as you know it when we're considering a new development. A traffic study for the city engineer is a study in which she and her team are evaluating a lot of data that we have gathered when designing a road to determine what all needs to go into that design. And in this case, what we didn't have in our study was accident data supporting the need for the center lane at this time. The notion was there'd be 2 6-foot bike lanes on each side of the road, but at some point in time, if engineering data supported a change, then the bike lanes would go away and the center turn lane would be there. The other unusual circumstance with this is we talk a lot about traffic warrants, and the city engineer will again confirm that the city manager is saying the right thing, is for a center turn lane or a two-way left turn lane, you don't have to have a warrant to install one, unlike a 4-way stop, a traffic signal, other things. This is one where you want to install one when it warrants for sure because it's a safety issue, but you don't have, you're not violating some major standard by installing one ahead of time. It's kind of a choice situation, and in this instance, the staff was choosing to advance plans, as is our normal course of business, that met all those guiding documents that we talked about. And there is no formal policy of the council that I'm aware of, or any staff member that's sitting in this room is aware of otherwise.
So to move forward with a vote and a discussion later on in the agenda, as Councilman Dawson mentioned, what has to happen here with the council? What motions do we need to make?
So in council procedures, somebody would have to move to suspend the rules to place a resolution on tonight's agenda under other business. In order to do that, it would take a motion and a second. I do have a draft resolution prepared in the event that you guys choose to do that. It would take a motion and a second. You would have discussion about that, and then when you vote, it takes 2/3 of the council present to adopt, which would mean 6. There's 8 of you present. You round up with Robert's Rules of Order. It's 5.33 is, doing the math, and I'm not a math major, but you round up, so it would take 6 people in the affirmative to move it to an agenda item. Otherwise, the city manager would have no reason to place this item on the agenda without council direction.
Okay, thank you.
I move to suspend the rules and consider the resolution.
Point of order.
Go ahead.
Last meeting, we agreed to discuss this. I believe if we're going to discuss it, we probably ought to do that before we enter into a formal process to approve or disapprove a motion.
I don't disagree, Tommy. I mean, Kelly's right about that. So we're gonna have some discussion right now first before we take your motion.
Mayor, but you have a
Okay?
motion
Sure.
on the table you need to deal with.
Do we?
Yes. And you have discussion after either it gets a second or it's not a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second to suspend the rules and move forward. Discussion.
What kind of public, have we publicized this at all? I mean, what knowledge does the public have that we'd be voting on this tonight?
One major challenge is we have an active contract where we're asking a contractor to stop what they're doing and not proceed because we've got a road that's not striped. I am asking, time is of the essence in a contract where they have obligations and so do we. And so this is an item, if you're going to make a move, the city manager is requesting on behalf of a lot of contracts that we have, we need to proceed tonight. The public knows about it only in terms of the newspapers publicizing, meaning the city's not pushed out information because we had no idea what the council's going to choose to do. So we would never put out on social media any information that is one way or the other, but there have definitely been newspaper articles about it, and you received a number of letters from some members of the public. But neither did we publicize we're widening Cox Road and putting bike lanes. I mean, other than, hey, we're going to have some road closures and construction.
Would we notice this normally under different circumstances?
There would be no requirement to notice this, all contracts and agreements, and I can't be more definitive about this, you're not amending the contract, we would do that through our normal channels. You would just be basically waiving an informal policy to do this. There is no specific mechanism. We have an active contract. You don't vote on change orders typically. We make field changes every day on contracts and other things. It comes under the discretion of the city engineer, and my authority is given through her from a contract perspective. So that's why this is a very highly unusual circumstance. And in talking with the city attorney, this was the main way we could do this to give, if you wanted to give the public the opportunity to weigh in on it, they can weigh in also during a hearing process tonight on other items of business. Citizens' communications on items on the agenda without a public hearing. But because time is of the essence, it's also causing, the more we delay, the longer Cox Road won't be finished, and we also then cannot require the contractor to do certain things if we're holding them up. So it becomes a very challenging contractual issue for the staff.
So I guess my question is, okay, you already got a contract with the roads to be striped and widened with bike lanes, right?
Correct.
So if it's approved tonight, it just really require contract changes, which is a change order, to eliminate the bike lanes and put the turn lane in.
That's correct.
Okay, now how is cost going to be associated with that? Would it change the cost of the contract?
City Engineer Frazier?
Yes, based on our estimates, based on our cost estimates, it will cost approximately $10,000 more to do the striping modification.
Okay.
And we have, in contracts, we have, as you may be aware, we have limitations on change orders we can do without going back to the council. And I don't know with all the give and take in this contract where that is from a full accounting, because we also have other contractual issues that we're dealing with. They just don't involve the council at this juncture. It's just more of a routine matter with us.
And I guess, and my thoughts to this is that I actually travels that road going to Tuskegee every day to get on the interstate. And I've never, since I've been traveling, and I've been at Tuskegee for 9 years now, I've never really seen bikes out there. So and just, and if you're talking, if I'm coming off the interstate and getting on to, you talking about the turning lanes are?
If you're talking from Fieldview all the way to Wire Road, so just past the Technology Park all the way to Wire Road, and the bike lanes would be terminating near the interchange anyway. But it's probably not quite half a mile north of the interchange. It's at Fieldview Drive, which is one road north of Veterans, West Veterans.
One more question I want to ask. So when we looking at this tonight, I guess maybe there's some people in the audience that maybe want to speak on it or disagree or approve the change and everything. So, and I'm gonna ask Tommy this again because I asked him at the last meeting, but some people might have not been here. But are most of the people in that area, are they okay with the turn lane?
Yes, most people who live out there are okay with the turn lane. Everybody I heard from, the reason I brought it up is one of the person that lives out there jumped all over me one night on the phone about the dangers of Cox Road and buses being passed regularly out there when they're trying to load and unload children, and just really was upset about the way the road's being done and being treated and spending that much money for 2 bike lanes and a widened traffic lane. That's why I brought this up like I had tonight. And I think I think there will be some here tonight to speak on problems of Cox Road, just like I'm hoping there will be from the bike people to speak on what they feel about it.
Well, personally, I really don't see a problem with the turn lane, but, I guess after everybody speak, then everybody have an opinion, so.
You recognized?
Yeah.
Council approved the existing contract, is that correct?
Correct.
And that was an agenda item at some point for the council, so the public was aware that we were considering, reviewing, deliberating on that contract prior to the council vote.
Correct.
So the council has voted to expend the money and to build the road as currently designed. Is that accurate?
That was on there, but only the contract specifications were on the agenda. The entire the bid tabulation is on the agenda with a memo and a minor version of the contract. The entire plans and specs for the project are not included with the council agenda item. Just a basic contract and a dollar amount with some quantities.
Okay.
And so as tonight, you were advertised to discuss this in committee of the whole as well.
Right, yes, that's correct. The plans that you spoke of, I'm looking at something here, it says we had the Connect Auburn plan, which was published in December of 2019.
It's not a published plan.
Well, it was completed in 2019, Connect Auburn, a plan for Auburn's bikeways, in parentheses, December 2019, was completed under contract to a nationally acclaimed Alta Design and Planning Consulting Group.
That's correct. The plan has never been presented to the city council.
Right. Okay. And that also, that was managed by a staff team of Allison Frazier, Becky Richardson, Scott Cummings, and others. And then in addition to that, I'm using Bruno Ulrich's information here, so Barge Design Solutions assisted in the construction documents, is that?
No, they did not. Only on the roundabout, which is a
Roundabout,
separate project.
All right. All right. I don't know, I find it ironic that just a couple of weeks after we've had a Bicycle Week proclamation, on the city hall steps, that our first official action is to do something contrary to what the bicycle community wants. And for those of you who don't see bicycles on Cox Road, it's because it's not safe to have bicycles on Cox Road. However, with this change, with a smooth, flat, as you mentioned, contoured, everything, lanes, it will be safe. And that particular route allows cyclists to go from Wire Road over to Sand Hill Road and circumnavigate the city without having to traverse all these intersections and whatnot. And for anyone who is a bike rider, and I am one, to think that a turn lane makes it safer for bicycles, 2 bike lanes, you have a 6-foot barrier and you have your own dedicated lane. Whereas if you have a turn lane, a bicyclist is going to be riding in traffic. You're riding in the motorist's lane because they're considered by state law as a vehicle. So you have a fast-moving 50-mile-an-hour vehicle coming up on a slow-moving bicycle, and the bicyclist is hoping that the person will move over into the turn lane. If he does, that's wonderful. But the odds are not all of them are going to do that. So this way you have your own dedicated lane, you're out of the way, and motorists can go on by you without having to worry about it, particularly with a 6-foot lane versus the 3-foot lanes that we have in town as the recommended safe distance. Just today I was riding right out here when we have crossing the highway over here. We have the button where you hit the flashing lights, and so you have the crosswalk. Well, just today I hit those buttons and just about got run over because the motorist coming over the hill didn't want to stop for a bicyclist. So, I mean, to think that people are going to do the right thing is wonderful. A lot of them will do the right thing. They'll move over. But it doesn't take much for somebody to get killed out there riding their bicycle. And again, if we had a safe route on Cox Road, then you would see bicycle traffic out there. So I think that by doing away with bike lanes, we're doing a disservice to the majority of the community, whereas we're only favoring a few folks that think it's going to be convenient. And they think it's safer as well, Tommy. I agree with you.
Well, say that again. A few folks what now?
A few folks will be convenienced.
What few folks is that?
I guess the folks that are turning left.
What are you referring to?
I'm not referring to anything. I'm stating the fact.
Exactly. And what kind of barrier is going to be for this bike lane? It's going to be a stripe on the road. It's not going to keep a car from running over you. And I can assure you that when you drive on Cox Road, they're not going to pay much attention to that stripe on that road. And it's a fallacy to say this is connecting stuff up, because it's not. The only connection this bike lane will have is to southbound on Wire Road, or to bike path that is going out Wire Road. So if we're going to talk about it, let's just tell the truth about it and tell it what it is. I'm not against bike lanes at all. Not at all. But I cannot sit by when my constituent asking me to speak up on it and not speak up on it. And all I can do is ask the council to consider it and hear from both sides. But this bike lane, this 1.5 miles of bike lane, plus a 1/2 mile of a concrete multi-use path. The bikes have told me they don't like to use the multi-use path because people walking and can't hear them with the earbuds in the ear, and I can understand that. I can see where that makes sense. But it will not. A Longleaf is one of the main roads coming into Cox Road. It's a turn lane all the way from Cox Road to South College Street. There's no bike lane there whatsoever. There's an extra wide sidewalk on it, but there's no bike lane. There's no bike lane on Veterans coming off. There's no bike lane from Cox and Wire into town for bikes to ride on. You have to ride on the 4-lane highway up there on Wire Road, or 4 or 5 lanes in some areas now, to get to the multi-use path that the university has in front of the vet school. It starts at Webster. So the only connectivity that will be to the bike path lane going south on Wire Road, which goes to Chadwick Lane, or almost Chadwick Lane. So I don't know why we think we're connecting, because we're not. It stops at Fieldview Drive.
Well, I've ridden it, and I would appreciate a connection, and I would consider a bike lane a connection. And ridden it from Wire Road, ridden it from the university, up the multi-use path that the university has in front of the vet school, crossing over, go up to Cox Road, take Cox Road over to the industrial park. And once you get to the industrial park entrances, there's a wide road and a wide shoulder, and it's safe there. It is not safe between Wire Road and the entrance to the industrial park. And that's what I'm referring to. And it would certainly be safer, in my opinion, to have a dedicated lane for bicyclists. And I think that would be doing a disservice if we're going to speak about the city being a bike-friendly community, to have our first official action being doing away with bike lanes.
But Kelly, it's not connecting you to anything except a southbound bike path on Wire Road. I mean, if you can think of something else, educate me on it, but I don't see how it's not connecting anywhere else to any other more bike lanes. It's a mile and a half on, if you want, like right up and down Cox Road, you have bike lanes a mile and a half. But it doesn't even go all the way to Veterans.
Do we have future plans to expand that to connectivity? I know that
I'll have the city engineer speak to that, meaning over the interchange and back to College Street on Cox Road.
and a future plan, I mean, I don't even know if that's in the pipeline right now, but I know we have a big deal about Auburn connectivity, and, I mean, right now it may not connect, but do we see that in the future, there being a kind of a cyclist circle around town?
I'd have to look back at our draft Greenway and Bikeway plan. I don't recall, it's not on the radar in the next 6 years.
I was
Anybody
looking
else?
at
Go ahead, Bob.
I was looking at the Connect Auburn plan. I'll preface this also. I'm also a cyclist. My grandfather owned a bike store. My father owned a bike store. I grew up in around bikes. My family didn't have a car until I was 14, and we were known in Australia as that loopy Parsons bike riding family. And so I feel I'm pretty well qualified to know what the cyclist community would like. And I think hands down the cyclist community appreciate a buffer between their bike and the general traffic. And I'm very confident to say that that particular bike lane would be very appreciated in terms of a overall arching strategy about connecting this city. That is one element. I noticed it was phase 3 in the Connect Auburn plan of 5 phases, I believe, that spanned a 10-year time frame. So I would be confident to see other additions to that connectivity. These things can't happen overnight. And obviously, you're constrained by your budget, but you can do them pieces at a time. And I was understanding that this piece would be one of those pieces added to a long-range plan of connectivity. And I must say, when I first saw the Connect Auburn plan in the planning office, when it was presented to the public informally and not adopted, I hasten to add that, it was quite exciting to see the possibilities of this town embracing other types of travel options that many of us enjoy in this town, and it spoke to me the fact that we are forward thinking in terms of how we plan our city, and I was very excited. And I must say that similar to you, Kelly, is I'm out on the road pretty regularly, and I won't use the multi-use path because I probably will knock over a toddler or something. And I will brave the road, but I would rather not feel like I'm braving the road. I would rather feel like I'm welcomed on the road.
Anyone else? Council?
If I may, I just have a couple of questions. If this is an informal policy, I guess I'm confused as to why this is even something that we have to act on.
There were concerns raised that it was deliberation. Whether you would be deliberating at this meeting, you do board and commission appointments and other things. And to be clear and to give the public an opportunity to speak, what I was looking for is I worked for the 9 of you as the city manager. I was looking for the majority of you to tell me if you wanted this modified or not, because this is a highly unusual thing. I don't think in my entire career I remember anything quite like it. But it also falls in the whole of, a couple of council members have mentioned the Connect Auburn plan. It's not adopted. It's not a disinterest of staff. I think as an outcome of 2040, that needs to be fully vetted and may become a major goal of the city. COVID happened and held us up on that. The bikeways, greenways, some things aren't implemented. The community did have robust discussion about it, but in this instance, I also understood some of you were concerned about giving the public an opportunity to speak at this meeting about it, so I was coming up with a resolution that basically gives the city manager direction to modify a contract, because normally, and like I said, in any contract we're doing, I don't need a formal contract amendment from the council unless we're changing something about money. We amend our contracts all day, every day, and it normally doesn't rise to the council's level. So in trying to be certain that I had formal direction from the council, because concerns were raised about informal direction, that is where this came from.
Can we improve the multi-use I'm confused as why we
It's
can't.
it's constructed, the multi-use is in and poured.
What happens if we were to move this to allow this to be put on the agenda and for the next meeting in June?
I need to continue to warn the council that we have an active contract and advise you as such. And when we cause a slowdown, we cannot hold somebody responsible for being late on a contract. So when we slow them down, then that is days deducted off of, if a contract is late or there are other issues. I mean, it's a two-way street there. So we have an active contract, and the more we slow somebody down, the more we cannot hold them accountable for performance on a timing issue. So that
Are they going to be striping within the next?
they might have been striping already.
Yeah, no, they're temporarily striping. They're not anywhere near close to striping. From what I can tell, they have another layer of asphalt to go down. So let's be clear on where we're at on the project.
I mean, do we know if a delay? Yeah, I mean, I think that's
City engineer can speak to that.
contractor.
She's responsible for managing the contract and her staff.
So Mr. Dawson is correct. It is temporarily striped, but when we place the final wearing surface, which is the next thing to be done, it needs to have the final temporary striping done. So it doesn't need to be done incorrectly, only to come back. We don't want to do that on the final wearing surface.
Is that going to occur in the next 2 weeks?
It very well could, yes.
We've been, and it's not costing us dearly to date, but it can cost us. And again, the final layer will have a second temporary bit, it'll cover up what was temporary striping. There'll be a final layer, and then they'll come through with what's called thermoplast, which is the reflective striping. One of the challenges is, and the concern raised to me has been, well, if we're going to restripe this in the long term, how easy is it to get striping off? Once we put the thermoplast down, you'll see what you see on Gay Street by the City Hall building, where we moved the crosswalk at Titchener and Gay from one side of Titchener to the other. Is they've got a mechanism to grind it down and semi-remove it, but you can still partially see it. Before the final wearing surface, that's not the case. It's certainly the council's pleasure to do that, but it's, again, highly unusual, and I have to advise that it could cause some challenges for us about anything having to do with holding people accountable for certain timeframes. Every day that we tell them they can't do something is a day deducted from when they didn't get something done, and it's a balancing act. So it's just something that I need to advise you about that creates challenges for the staff.
So Megan, if 6 of us would want to move this forward for a resolution later on the agenda, then those in here that in the audience that would like to speak to this can speak to it, to us, during items,
Item 6, citizens communications on
citizens
agenda
communications
items.
on agenda items. And then when it comes up for a council vote, after the motion is second, then the council can continue to have a conversation on that, correct?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
So what is the completion deadline for the project?
A long time ago, November of 2020, according to the information the city engineer provided today, November of 2020.
So
I mean, is it city related or is it contract?
No, we did have a pretty wet season. Some of
Yeah.
it's rain, some of it's just contractor delay.
It's a challenging project, but yeah, some of it's contractor delay, and that's why, yeah.
And if I may, Mayor, I don't know how this vote is going to go, so I want to say what I would need to say before the vote, whether we're even going to consider this tonight or not. I'm only doing what my constituents asked me to do. They think turn lanes would be better on the road. I happen to agree with them. Am I against bike lanes? Absolutely not. If you want to put bike lanes at the council, put your bike lanes out there. I'm going to be there regardless. My family's been here since the early 1800s. We're going to be, good Lord willing, I'll be there at least another 20 years, I hope. My daddy's 75, I'm 55, so if I live like he did, I'll make 75, good Lord willing. So I'm going to be there. So the bike lanes aren't going to affect me. But what gets me is anytime you bring something up on this council now, the first thing out of people's mouths is you got some, and at least 2 councilmen were privy to this, and as far as I know, did not defend my integrity. But the first thing out of somebody's mouth to a couple of council people were, let's look at who's got the most to gain. And it also went on to say the Dawsons owns 46 contiguous acres. The Dawsons happen to own 80-something contiguous acres, but let me tell you something. We'll own it till we drop dead and die, and they told us out from out there. We have no intention of selling any land to anybody. First of all, I made a living protecting this community against public corruption. I put people in jail for public corruption before. So this idea that somehow I'm going to gain something from a turn lane going, yeah, you're right, I'm irritated. I'm upset tonight because you're questioning my integrity. At least 2 of you council people let it happen. You question my integrity. I have defended both of y'all. And I'm not going to call you names, but you know who you are. I defended both y'all's integrity in meetings like this. But if you want the bike lane, put the bike lane. I'm not upset about the bike lane, not at all. My constituents want the turn lane. I think it'd be better. But if the council decides they don't want to hear this tonight and go to the bike lane, like I said, it's not going to affect me. But this project has been way behind. My driveway will never be right again. I agreed to it like it is, but it'll never be right again. It's messed up forever. My poor old daddy and mama had to nearly get run. Let me tell you what we put up with. When he comes in from work, turning in, people behind him start blowing the horns, cursing. This is a preacher who has to put up with people cussing him out so he can get turned in his driveway because he can't see. But it's not, Cox Road is not quite as important as some of the other areas around town, I guess. So if you don't want to consider it, don't do it because I asked you to. Don't consider it. That's fine. Go with the bike lane. If it makes everybody more happy, go with the bike lane. But I'm not going to be, I don't want to hear it when somebody gets killed out there, run on a bicycle or whatever else. You do not realize how people drive on that road. You took a farm road and turned it into a major interchange road. It comes off, people get off the interstate doing 90 miles an hour, and they tend to continue to do that 90 miles an hour. Not too long ago, I've had a young man leave the road out there and go so far up in our woods that if my dad had not been walking out there and heard him moaning, he'd have stayed there the next day and probably been found dead. That's how dangerous it is out there on Cox Road. So, but again, don't say Tommy Dawson's against bike lanes. I'm not. I'm fine with it. But let's be fair to everybody. We didn't announce tonight we were going to discuss bike lanes. So we didn't say we were going to put turn lanes in. We didn't say we were going to put bike lanes in tonight. So, I mean, I'm fine. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Don't do it because of me. Like I said, I've been there a long time. Good Lord willing, I'm going to continue to be there. And I'll just be extra careful coming out on the bike lane. Because I had to pull 2 feet out into the bike lane to be able to see which way I'm going to go down the road because I can't see from my driveway the way it has been messed up. So I'm to the point when you want to get personal and I got to defend my honor, it's going too far. And that's got to stop with this council, period. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's which council person it is. This stuff about somebody's always got an ulterior motive. It's bull crap. Just put it like it is. That's bull crap. I never made a dime off anything to do with this or any project I voted on in this city and never will. Thank you.
Tommy, I certainly respect the reason that you wanted to bring this forward, and I think the residents of Ward 8 and Cox Road are fortunate to have you so passionately representing them.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to say? Okay,
I have a procedural question.
sure, go ahead.
On moving it to the agenda, when is timing right to potentially try to move to table it to the next meeting? Would that be at this point in the committee of the whole, or would that be when it's actually on the agenda?
It's not on the agenda yet, so you've got a motion that's just from committee of the whole. What I'm saying is
But I'm sorry, I didn't mean
No,
to
you're
interrupt, but
fine.
this kind of clarifies my question. If we move it to the agenda, but the resolution is then tabled, not tabled, but to a certain date in the future, the next meeting, we would then publish we'd at least have the agenda and people would know it would be on the agenda.
correct. There would be no other public advertisement because it wouldn't require it, so it would just be on the agenda.
It'd be on the official agenda.
And the fitting way to do that, if you're trying to notice in that fashion, would be to move it at least onto the agenda, because it is not an item that the city manager would move onto the agenda of my own accord.
But if I were to move now and that were to be passed, we would be only moving the consideration of whether or not to draft a resolution.
Correct. It would not be moving on to anywhere.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may, one thing I want to point out, I said 83 contiguous acres owned by the Dawsons. Dawsons is right, but I only actually own a 3/4 of an acre and a house. So my dad and uncles own that, so there's no way I can benefit from if y'all, that's what you got in your head, so. And very little of it's road frontage. I do good to get my car in my little road frontage I got.
Okay, let's go ahead and move forward. So the council, at this point in time, we're going to consider moving this. Tommy, if you would read your statement one more time, your request. I think there's been enough time. Let's rehear that again.
I just request that we move forward tonight with a resolution to consider striping it with center turn lanes. I don't have the resolution in front of me, but that's what that's what it is. That we move forward tonight and we give the citizens both sides a chance to be heard in citizens' communications, and you vote your conscience. I think you at least owe it to the citizens to hear the bike people out as well as the people that live out there on Cox Road out. And if you don't want to approve it, you don't want to get, then that's the time to vote it down. I think you at least owe it to the citizens. I would hope you would think this to give it a shot to be heard tonight. What you're about to vote on does not mean you approve it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Crouch, but it just simply gives you a chance to hear it tonight, hear from both sides. I've heard from some of them. Some of them made good points today I talked to on the bike committees. But I got some constituents here that have made very good points. So I just ask respectfully that you really let it move forward. And after hearing both sides from our people out here tonight, if you don't want to go with it, it's no hard feelings from me. Not going to be hard feelings from me either way you go. Whether you tell me shut up right now. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be around here tomorrow, good Lord willing. But
So, Ms. Crouch, we've got a motion and a second. Would it be appropriate to have a roll call vote on this?
You can do a roll call if it's easier, because we do need to know if it takes 2/3 in the affirmative to move it onto the agenda.
Okay, so we're voting council to move this onto the agenda, and it would be at the end of the agenda?
It'd be item 11A,
Okay.
an item of
Okay.
other business. And again, when we get to item 6, which is citizens' communications on agenda items, should you
time to
move this
speak.
forward,
Sure.
you'll remind everybody that that's their opportunity to speak.
Okay, all right, so the motion, so if you vote yes, you are moving this to later on to the agenda where we'll actually officially consider this, okay? If you vote no, it will stay right here and we won't consider it anymore.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Sure, Bob.
In the event that it moves on into a regular agenda item and we vote on it, what is the vote count? Does the vote count remain the same?
Simple majority.
A simple majority.
Okay,
Right, it's just procedurally, and there's a resolution that adopted procedures for the council, and in that, it makes it clear to do anything to suspend rules takes 2/3 vote. There's very rare ordinances that require something specific, but not in this case. It's just a straight resolution.
okay. Everybody ready? All right, Lindsay, roll call, please.
Dawson,
yes, ma'am.
Griswold,
Yes, ma'am.
Hovey,
Yes, ma'am.
Parsons,
No.
Smith,
Yes, ma'am.
Taylor,
Yes.
Witten,
Yes.
Anders.
Yes. Okay, we'll take this up later on the agenda, and I'll remind anyone that would like to speak to this that under item number 6, it will be your time to speak to this. All right, questions on the agenda for the city manager? Any questions? City manager, do you have anything for us?
No, I do not.
Okay, is there a move to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, we are adjourned the committee of the whole. It is 7:28, so we'll go ahead and move forward. I'll open up tonight's city council meeting, June 1st, 2021. Roll call, Lindsay.
Dawson,
Here.
Dixon, Griswold,
Here.
Hovey,
Here.
Parsons,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
Taylor,
Here.
Witten,
Here.
Anders.
Here. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and then a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Okay, to begin mayor and council communications tonight, we'll go ahead and start with a video that it has a lot to include. Our Employee of the Month, our service awards, and then a number of other celebrations of excellence from Auburn City Schools. All right, Greg? This is Mayor Ron Anders, and we're proud to introduce you to our June Employee of the Month and many of our great employees with their service awards. This is Mayor Ron Anders, and today I'm proud to present to you our June Employee of the Month. I have a memorandum here from Greg Nelson, our Chief Information Officer for the City of Auburn, to Megan Crouch, our City Manager. It is my honor to nominate Laura Ariori as the Employee of the Month for June 2021. Serving as the GIS analyst in the Information Technology Department, she is responsible for both curating and developing business intelligence within and through our mapping technology. Her expertise in this position provides value across all corners of the organization, such as optimizing the fire division's response times, flying drones to document capital projects, helping departments streamline operations, and producing maps to visualize community initiatives. Identifying and implementing new technology is an everyday part of her job. As such, she is responsible for many revolutionary advances in the city. The emergence of drones and regulation thereof has been one of such complicated but an impactful solution. Working with Auburn University to manage a graduate fellowship program, she makes accessible to the city even more novel technology. She exemplifies excellence. She artfully communicates complex ideas in a way that all team members can see the vision and has the discipline to execute the tedious work that is often necessary to achieve our goals. The mastery of her craft, ability to communicate across disciplines, agility to respond to change, and selfless desire to see all succeed are embodied in her work. Her impact in our department and our community surely makes Laura worthy of being celebrated as the June 2021 Employee of the Month. This is Mayor Ron Anders, and I'm proud today to recognize our Teachers of the Year for Auburn City Schools. This is something we normally do at the City Council meeting live each and every year, but obviously this year things are different. But we're very proud of our school system. The City Council has had a great and long history of supporting our school system, and one of the ways we support our school system is to recognize the outstanding people that work at our school system, and as we are doing today, recognizing those teachers. So I have a resolution here that I'll be reading that the City Council will be looking at and evaluating and hopefully approving tomorrow night at our General Council meeting. Whereas the City Council recognizes that quality schools are an essential component of a progressive community, and whereas the teachers dedicate themselves to empowering thousands of children with knowledge, and whereas Auburn City Schools strives for excellence to provide Auburn students with the most enriched education as possible. Whereas Auburn City Schools has honored the following teachers as Teacher of the Year for their respective schools: Sylvia Scaife, Auburn High School; Kim Johnson, Auburn Junior High School; Timothy Meeks, East Sanford School; Tracy Curry, Drake Middle School; Abby Brown, Auburn Early Education Center; Brooke Braswell, Cary Woods Elementary School; Ashley Wood, Creekside Elementary School; Whitney McBride, Dean Road Elementary School; Deanne DeWeese, Ogletree Elementary School; Lee Green, Pick Elementary School; Celeste Dorman, Richland Elementary School; Medetrick Oliver, Wrights Mill Road Elementary School; and Tracy Apprendi, Yarborough Elementary School. Whereas Auburn City Schools has named Medetrick Oliver of Wrights Mill Road Elementary as the Elementary Teacher of the Year, and Kim Johnson of Auburn Junior High School as the Secondary Teacher of the Year. Congratulations to both of y'all. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Auburn, Alabama, that the Council hereby recognizes and congratulates the Teacher of the Year honorees from Auburn City Schools for their outstanding achievement in the teaching profession. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be spread upon the minutes of this meeting and a copy presented to each honoree. Adopted and approved by the City Council of Auburn, Alabama, this first day of June, 2021. Whereas the City Council is pleased to honor Auburn City Schools, its faculty, its staff, and its students for their excellent achievements and contributions both inside and outside the classroom. And whereas the Auburn High School baseball team claimed the 2021 Alabama High School Athletic Association's Class 7A state championship in a series against Hoover. And the Auburn Tigers won 9-2 in Game 1 before losing Game 2, and then finally came out on top 7-6 in an exciting Game 3 to be the champions. The two teams battled for almost 6 hours in the doubleheader until the game-ending reliever Ryan Olson, where are you, Ryan? His mother wanted me to make sure I recognized him. Struck out the final batter with the tying and winning runs on bases. Whereas this marks the 5th championship in Auburn High School's varsity baseball program. 5 times we've done this. And whereas Patrick McGlone was named the series MVP after going 3 for 4 with 2 RBIs in the series deciding game. And whereas the championship team consists of Henry Allen, raise your hand, Henry, as I recognize if y'all are here and not at the beach, good. Ryan Austin, Riley Austin, John Benefield, Todd Clay, Connor Cosby, Nathan Foster, Brady Fuller, David Hickson, Patrick McGlone, Jace Norton, Ryan Olson, Tanner Phillips, Evan Pope, Matt Rhodes, Caleb Sanders, Sully Speaks. I didn't spell your name all the way out, Sullivan. That's good. Griffin Stewart, Jack Toulier, Will Turner, Webb Veronese, Tanner Waldrop, Brennan Wall, Jason Waters, Peyton Williams, and Walker Zapp. If we left somebody off, Mama, please forgive us. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Auburn, Alabama, that our council recognizes and formally congratulates the players, coaches from the Auburn High School baseball team for their outstanding achievements and their exemplary efforts in representing Auburn City Schools and our community, the City of Auburn. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be spread upon the minutes and presented to Coach Matt Semo and his team, and this will be read and presented on Tuesday night at our next council meeting, which is June the 1st, 2021. Congratulations, guys. Whereas the City Council is pleased to honor Auburn High School, its faculty, staff, and students for their excellent achievements, both in the classroom and outside the classroom. And whereas 2 Auburn High golfers were state champions in the 2021 Alabama High School Athletic Association Class 7A state golf tournament. Whereas Auburn High School's 7th grader, Kate Ha, won the girls' individual tournament at the state championship, firing a 3-under 69. And whereas Tiger sophomore William Stelt won the boys' individual tournament with a 3-under 68. And whereas both the Auburn High boys and Auburn High girls teams finished in 3rd place in their respective team standings. And whereas High not only fired the low score amongst 7A competitors at Magnolia Grove Crossings course in Mobile, but the 7th grader fired the lowest score on the course out of any girls golfer from any classification. Congratulations, that's awesome. And whereas the Auburn High School girls finished with a 226 and the Auburn High School boys shot 299, both teams finished just 3 strokes off the lead. Now, therefore be resolved by the City Council of the City of Auburn, Alabama, that the council hereby recognizes and formally congratulates the players and coaches from the Auburn High School golf team for their outstanding achievements and their exemplary efforts in representing Auburn City Schools and our community, the City of Auburn. We're very proud of you. Congratulations. Whereas Auburn High School's Trey Reynolds recently won the 2021 Alabama High School Athletic Association Class 7A Individual Track State Championship in the 110 hurdles. And whereas Trey, a member of the Auburn High School's class of 2021, finished with a time of 13.94 seconds and is now the Auburn High School record holder in the 110-meter hurdle. And whereas Trey was also the champion at the prestigious Meet of Champions in Mobile in this same event. Trey finished his season with a 2nd place finish in the state decathlon, making him the 3rd male in Auburn High School history to finish 2nd. He scored a new school record of 5,897 points. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Auburn, Alabama, that the council hereby recognizes and formally congratulates Trey Reynolds for his outstanding achievements and exemplary efforts representing Auburn City Schools and our city, the City of Auburn. Congratulations, Trey. Thank you. We're proud of you, man. All right, let's get our picture. Service. I want to thank Paul and Cedric for hosting that day. It was very meaningful service and very appropriately done in conjunction with Opelika's Police Department and Lee County Sheriff. And what a great event. I encourage each of us. I believe, Mr. Register, it rotates between the three entities, and so next year it'll either be at the courthouse or over at Opelika, but very well done. So very nice time, and I appreciate that. At that time. Also, that was the day of the Chamber of Commerce's annual meeting, and as opposed to being in the arena with 800 people, we were at the Hotel and Conference Center with a few less people than that, but I appreciate the Chamber wanting to take the time to recognize all the outstanding citizens of Auburn who have done a great job. They recognized Mr. Bobby Abrams from SIO2 with the Chairman's Award, which is the highest award that the Chamber of Commerce gives each and every year, and we've talked about Mr. Abrams and his company a lot during the pandemic especially, and he was certainly an appropriate person for us to recognize, but I appreciate the efforts that they put in to making that happen. Yesterday, the Memorial Day celebration, recognition, remembrance was out here at the Veterans Memorial. I want to thank all the staff that participated in that, making it a very appropriate event. The weather was spectacular. I thought the words of Dr. Weedy were particularly poignant of the day, and the people, our singers of the national anthem and taps and the bagpipes at the end, we were very blessed to have those people want to participate with us, and very grateful for all the efforts that went to making that a very special event. And speaking of young people, yesterday afternoon late, a young man who grew up here in Auburn and went to Lee Scott won the NCAA Men's Individual Golf Championship, a young man named Turk Pettit, who's been a part of this community all of his life and chose to go to Clemson to play college golf, and he is now the NCAA champion. So we're very proud of Turk for doing that. That's all I have with mayor's announcements. Does anybody on the council have anything they'd like to add?
I do, Mayor, if I
Sure.
may. I just also want to recognize the Auburn City Schools boys lacrosse team. They had a successful season. I think they fell slightly short of the championship, but from the state level, but they did a tremendous job this year, and just kudos to their success. And I also want to commend our Parks and Rec on City Market. It's one of my favorite times of year, and it was packed early. So just want to say my appreciation to the Parks and Rec for a successful City Market. And then lastly, this is June 1, which kicks off Pride Month. And I know that there's a Pride on the Plains Festival this weekend at Kiesel Park. So just want to let everybody know that as well.
Thank you. Anyone else on the council have an announcement they'd like to make?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to thank everyone who actually came out and enjoyed the festivities on May 22nd for the Unsung Hero. It was very successful, and if you came out, you learned a lot. The program, the celebration ceremony, was outstanding. We had a great speaker, but I also want to say that on June 19th, there will also be a Juneteenth celebration at Sam Harris Park, and that's on a Saturday, June 19th. And if you're not familiar with Juneteenth, please feel free to come out and listen to some of our guest speakers who will talk about the occasion. We have musical performances. We'll have free food, games, and a whole lot more. And that is going to be, the public is invited, and the celebration will start at 10 a.m., and it'll go on until everybody basically leave around 3, 4 o'clock, somewhere like that. So everybody is welcome to come out and enjoy that day also.
Good. Thank you, Connie. Appreciate your organization and efforts. Anyone else on the council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Sure, go ahead.
I just spent 30 minutes down at Toomer's Corner. For some of you who are familiar with the Toomer's Sit-In, it's a group of people who have sat at Toomer's Corner between the hours of 5 and 7 for the last year, rain, hail, or shine. And I wanted to acknowledge them and appreciate the fact that they sit there and they engage with the public with frank conversations and meaningful conversations about race. And I certainly appreciate the dedication that the core group that show up every day has displayed in this community. And it's going to be interesting to see what direction they take now after having one solid year behind them, but I'm confident that they will continue to find a place in this community.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else? I forgot to mention Auburn 2040. The portal is still open and available for the next really 2 weeks, so we want to encourage our community to sign up. All the explanations and descriptions of the teams is available on the city's website, and I remind you that if you did this last year, we need you to do it again this year. Okay, so last year's sign up doesn't count for this year, so please go back in and consider where you'd like to be involved. We'll kick off on July the 15th. And I see this as a project that'll take some time in August and September and October. So we need your participation and hope that you'll be excited about it as we plan Auburn's next 20 years.
Mayor, I'd also like to remind everybody, we had a citizen come by City Hall today they were having trouble signing up. You can come to City Hall, you can go to the library, Parks and Recreation, any city facility you can find, and somebody can help you get signed up, so don't let that be an impediment. If there's an issue, call us or stop by and we'll be happy to help.
Yeah, thank you, Megan. Okay. During the committee of the whole, we had some discussion. Well, first of all, we started off with Indian Pines Recreation Authority, where the council has appointed Brad Martin to begin a term that will start on June the 21st of this year. It's a 4-year term. And then we had a robust discussion about the Cox Road widening project and the striping of that road, and the city council ultimately decided to move forward with putting this on the agenda. It'll be the last thing on our agenda tonight, but if you would like to speak to that, the time for that is coming up on item number 6. But before we get there, item number 5 is Auburn University Communications. Is there a representative from Auburn? Yes.
Everyone, thank you all so much for having me again. So Camp Regal freshman orientation is in full swing. I'm actually a counselor, so it's been really fun. We started last week. We have 3 full-day sessions a week, and then a few virtual sessions coming up. More people are signed up in person. This is our largest freshman class to date, so it's bringing a lot of revenue downtown to all those businesses, and a lot of tourists have already come to Auburn just in the first week. Effective today, Auburn University will be requiring masks in certain areas, so classrooms, transportation services, and then health care facilities. Other than that, it'll be kind of up to the university to make those decisions in the coming months, but it is looking a lot better for fall semester with COVID-19. And then lastly, Auburn student government representatives, including myself, had a great breakfast with Mary Anders and City Manager Crouch recently. We're in the process of selecting 2 to 3 students to be placed on the Auburn 2040 committees so that we can really further that relationship with the city, make sure we get students on each of those committees. So that's pretty much all I have. Thank you all so much for having me.
Yeah,
War
thank
Eagle.
you. Thank you so much on War Eagle. Okay, at this time is citizen communications on items on the agenda. This is just for items that are on tonight's agenda. You have 5 minutes, and as you walk forward, please give us your name and address for the record. If you would like to speak on this new item that will be on our agenda related to Cox Road and the striping of Cox Road, this would be the time for you to do that. Okay?
Good evening, Council. Lindbergh B. Jackson, 506 Avenue A, Opelika. I'm here on a situation, and I'm sure a lot of you all are aware where our president is today. He's out in Tulsa. He's dealing with a 100-year problem that we failed to face as a country. An injustice that has been done to people that look like me. I'm here tonight because of an injustice that I feel that has been done to people that look a lot like me. That injustice is out on Cox Road, where there's an annexation that's going to take place here per the recommendation of the Auburn Planning Commission. Councilman Taylor and I started with this problem when people came to her about a property that was presently in the county. We went to the county commissioners. We addressed that property matter that concerns Mr. Painter. Mr. Painter ignored the people. He evicted several people, evaded their tenant rights, just totally ignored it. So I'm really speaking to you guys, but I'm actually speaking to the developer that is purchasing that property. That is an opportunity zone. That zone was created not by you guys, not by the state of Alabama, but by the Federal Treasury Commission, giving whoever develops that property certain tax advantages. Those advantages will be taken advantage of for about 7 years. Of Auburn will not reap several of those tax advantages. Mr. Painter and the developer will capitalize on that because of how he evicted these people. Right before the pandemic, these people had to move out, move their kids from one school system to another, had to absorb all of the costs of moving, and etc. The Opportunity Zone doesn't allow that. It says that if you displace somebody, you are responsible for some of their expenses. Mr. Painter totally refused to do anything about it. At the county commissioner's office meetings, we came here. You guys had every right to deny having anything to do with it because it was not in the city. But it is going to be zoned tonight, I believe, to come into the city of Auburn. The developer will take advantage of that. But what happened to all of those people that Mr. Painter wrongfully evicted? I'm going to conclude here because my time is running out. What's going to happen is these people, they're going to go and they're going to try to go on with their lives. Kids, they're going to go on. That is clear gentrification. As clear as a bell that rings liberty, those people have civil rights, those people have tenant rights. And we are adamantly pursuing it. We went to the courts. The courts didn't quite understand an opportunity zone because Auburn doesn't have any because of its economic base. But this was outside of the city. So what happens now? You guys bring it in. Mr. Painter, he makes his millions of dollars on his development. The developer, he makes his tax breaks and advantages. The people get what? They get shafted. People of color is about to be tired of this kind of action. Bob, I commend you because you go over and beyond to try to reach the two communities. America has not been fair to my people. This community has not been fair. And you guys may beg to differ because you're not like me. You haven't lived in my shoes, in my skin. But I tell you tonight, we will on notice that what he has done is wrong, and you guys, that we're contacting HUD, and we're going to do whatever is necessary to make sure that if he's taken advantage of that tax break, that these people will be compensated for their losses. Thank you very much. Is there any questions by any of you guys before I sit?
Nope. Thank you, sir. Who will be next?
My name is Randall McDaniel. I'm an Auburn citizen for a long time, an automobile driver, a resident of Ward 8. I live at 2169 Tamplin Drive in Auburn. Tommy is my representative on this council, and we love him to death in our area. And we don't think that he's trying to profit from this, the bicycle path.
Thank you, Randy.
However, I lead a bicycle group on Saturday mornings. You may have seen us around town. We call it the Bike and Breakfast Group. It's kind of a casual bunch. We'll run sometimes 10 people, sometimes 20. We used to be on Cox Road every Saturday morning, or a lot of Saturday mornings, and found that it just was too dangerous. And I think to Mr. Parsons' comment, most cyclists would like to have some barrier or relief between cars and them so they don't get run over. So I'm here to speak really for the proposal to continue the proposal that's been made to have the 2 bike lanes. Why not go with a multi-use path? Why not go with a suicide lane? Those are not great ideas from a biker's point of view. The multi-use bike paths that I've been on typically have a number of people walking or running, which is excellent, but a lot of them also have people who have a dog or 2 on a leash. People have their earbuds in. It's a little bit hazardous for bikers to be on that. Although I will say the thing is that parents can let their small kids ride a bike and be way away from traffic, and it's comfortable to have a bike path for most of the bikers that want to get one place or the other, either exercise or just trying to run errands or whatever they're doing, would prefer a bike path. Some separation out of the traffic, but by the road so there are not as many stops and problems as you're rolling along. So the idea of a 6-foot bike path on both sides of the road is just something so appreciated by the bike community. And something that we've looked forward to. One of the issues we hear about Auburn is that we have a lot of bike paths that start, or bike lanes that start from nowhere and end at nowhere. But that's sort of a temporary thing. We're expecting those to be pulled together and connected over the years so that we really have a bike-friendly city throughout, and that you can go from place to place, do your shopping, do your exercise, do whatever you want solely on a bicycle. We think that's sort of the way to go. As a matter of fact, I read recently in the New York Times that in 2020, bicycle sales zoomed over 40% higher, and for e-bikes, electric assist bikes, over 150% increase in sales. And what that tells me is that people during the pandemic, and I think is the way our society is going, are recognizing that cars aren't the only way to get around. There are other ways as efficient or more efficient, and biking is one of those ways. And so anything we can do in this community to make it more bike-friendly, I think the better community we'll have. Particularly important to me when I see we have a large student population. I used to be on the Auburn Bike Committee, and we looked at trying to get students coming from north, south, east, west into campus where they could come by bike and not bring a car every time. And so that would be my goal, to see us have an infrastructure that would allow something like that to happen, not only for students, but for those of us young and old who want to get out and ride our bikes and either exercise or do our transportation by bicycle. So I would support that. The only concerns I have with the multi-use, I've said there's a lot of people that use it. It's not a great bike path for most of us. The idea of a turn lane for a bicyclist is scary. The idea that I'm going to be down the center of the road and somebody's going to whip out of the traffic to make a left turn will be coming right at me. So that's a concern. And I just don't think those two solutions are as good as a bike path. So I appreciate your time, and I hope you'll give consideration to the plan.
Thank you, Mr. McDaniel.
Thank you, Randy.
Believe somebody, yes, sir, in the back?
Evening. Thank you for the opportunity. My name's Kirk Iverson. I live at 647 Shawnee Street in Auburn. It's Ward 4. And I ride bikes with Randy, and I always hear good things about Mr. Dawson. So
Thank
I
you.
think everybody here cares a lot about making our town better, and I think everybody here probably supports cycling. I'm a car driver too, and I'm a pedestrian too, so I do all this stuff. I really like to ride my bike. I was on the bike committee for 15 years, starting in maybe 2020. I was chair of the bike committee for 4 years. I was around when we were doing a lot of the things that made Auburn the first bike-friendly city in Alabama. Right now, we're one of 2 bike-friendly cities in Alabama. We've done a lot. With the growth of Auburn, it's not as safe to ride around here as it used to be. Just there's more people, there's more cars, there's more people coming to Auburn to do a lot of good things. So we're always trying to make it better. Looking back on what we were planning, the bike plan, the Auburn bike plan, I think has always envisioned some kind of bike facility on Cox Road. And it's always considered a facility on Wire Road between where the current Joanna Hoyt bike path ends at Cox and where the university bike path and bike lanes end at Webster. There's a gap between Webster and Cox that's supposed to be filled in. I think when they were making the Joanna Hoyt bike path, they ran out of money, so it ended at Cox. But the intention has always been to connect it to the rest of that path and to the university path that goes all the way into campus. I was involved in getting the funding and planning for the campus facility also. Evening, so and it's sort of it's mostly for recreation on that ride, but it's also showing cyclists how to ride properly through town and to build the skills up a little bit. I've stopped riding on Cox with that group because it's too dangerous now on an evening night ride. We still ride it on Saturdays. Even now, I'll probably be riding it this Saturday. It's interesting with the construction right now, but we go slow and careful, and we're very considerate of the cars, and most of them are considerate to us. So it's still okay. We're looking forward to the roundabout. That should make life better. I'll just say a couple things I've experienced in the path. I was around when they put in the Sanford extension that goes from EUD over to Glen. And originally that plan came down as just one multi-use sidewalk on one side of the road, and that was it for bikes. Otherwise it was car traffic. So we met with the city manager first and a bunch of city engineers and talked about it, and we explained our point of view. And it was like what Randy was saying already. It's not good to mix cyclists going at between 10 and 20 miles an hour and pedestrians, kids, dogs, whatever, going 0 to 2 or 3 miles an hour. It's better for us to be on the road following the traffic, same direction as the traffic, obeying the traffic laws just like the cars do. And we had a little bit of controversy when it was proposed to change it to the current status. In fact, the representative from Ward 8 at the time spoke up and said he didn't like it. It was expensive. 2 bike lanes is the same as 1 car lane in terms of expense. But the council voted to support it. It was built. And then at the council meeting after that, the gentleman spoke up and said he'd been against it, but now that it was done, he thought it was the best way to do it. And it's one of the best streets in Auburn now with that. Other example, I'm out of time, but Longleaf is an example of a poorly designed road. There's a multi-use sidewalk on one side. There's nothing for bikes in the street. You always see people walking or biking very slowly, children or older people who are trying to stay out of the street. But the rest of us are contending with cars. And there's a turn lane, but it doesn't make our lanes any wider. And so we have that's an example of a bad street. We do ride that daylight times, but we stay away from it at night. So I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who next? Yes, sir.
A shake. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, council members, Your Honor, city manager, everybody else. My name is Ken Pylant. I currently reside in Ward 4 with Brett Smith on Annalee Drive, 1400 Annalee Drive. However, I grew up on 2010 Lee Road 12. Anybody know what Lee Road 12 is? Tommy does. Trick question. So Lee Road 12, my parents bought some acreage out there, early 80s. That's Cox Road. So Cox Road was adopted, I say, 10, 15 years ago by the city, and it's total, like in the whole thing. I think it was patchwork, Megan, before, I think, a little bit here and there.
It likely was a negotiation with the county where it came in as to the city's control.
Well, it was a county road when I grew up on, and I want to make it kind of clear, like where I stand. I'm not against bikers or bike riders. I grew up wishing I could have a place to ride. I grew up on a gravel road, Bob. Very difficult to ride a bicycle on, needless to say. But I also feel it kind of important to, speak on behalf of a different perspective, shall we say. And my perspective is growing up on Cox Road is I've experienced some things that are unpleasant as it relates to motor vehicular traffic. When I was 16, I was hit by a vehicle on a tractor hauling hay. 2 years before that, my father was hit on another tractor, also hauling hay. Whereas I think it's important that, just like the cyclists want some type of improvement, enhancement that helps them for their safety, I think there's a whole nother perspective too, is what about the safety of all the other people that are in motor vehicles too? I mean, we get in accidents as well. If I would have had a turn lane then, I wouldn't have gotten hit. I was at the bottom of the hill, was taking a left-hand turn, put a turn signal out. It didn't stop the gentleman, the young man, from passing me going uphill into town, going up towards Sunset. Didn't stop it. It's kind of like what Tommy was saying. Lines don't stop people, accidents happen. What I would suggest is, and I'm sitting back here listening, to everybody talk, and I've got a full-page list of notes, and I'm not going to read from that. But one common occurrence that I keep redundantly hearing is, we're trying to put things together that don't mix. They don't need business being together. I think Kelly, or Mr. Griswold, I apologize, this is two. Iverson, I tried to write your names down, and to anybody else, it's not to prevent you, but I think that the city, me as a concerned citizen, someone that grew up out on Cox Road that's witnessed, also had 5 dogs killed on Cox Road. It's a weird road. It's a very strange, some strange things happening. Traffic counts have increased. But why are we trying to why are we trying to mix oil with water? There are other places that they separate them. Why not take the tax dollars and do maybe a better multi-use pad? Or perhaps Alabama state law says is that, if I interpret it correctly, that if a municipality provides a path that's designated for bikers, they are required by law to use that path, is how I interpret it. So why not do something outside of the road? Let's not compete. You're not going to win. Not against a motor vehicle. I don't walk in the road. It's dangerous. Let's get the cyclists out. I'd probably be more inclined, hey, listen, I'm overweight, out of shape. I could probably benefit for a bike ride, to be honest. But you're not ever going to see me competing with a vehicle or an 18-wheeler traveling 60 miles an hour. It's not going to happen. I just don't feel like I'd win. So thanks for allowing me to come and speak to you tonight.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah.
Who will be next?
Everything he said. Clay Langford, I live at 2021 Fieldview, and I agree with him. I don't think unless you live out there, you know, listen to what Tommy said. There's so much traffic out there. I don't think people realize how much traffic comes off of 85 in the morning, going to Auburn and going from Auburn, you know, back to Montgomery and other places. I'm not anti-cycling. I mean, I think it's great. But like he said, I think you know, I've heard no less than 3 different people say we don't ride bikes out there anymore because it's dangerous, just in this meeting. And I think they're all correct. I don't know what the solution is. Again, I don't think it makes one bit of difference, you know, what y'all decided. I'm just thinking it's not, we shouldn't be advocating to bring more people in. And I appreciate you for listening to me. Thank you, Tommy, for.
Hello, my name is Dan Keidel. I'm 1173 Town Creek Drive. I've heard everybody, and I kind of feel for some of the comments have been has had here, but I don't think everyone really understands when these cyclists are talking about riding on the road. You know, we know when the road is dangerous. It's not something you can quantify. It's hard to measure, but you can feel it. You know when a mirror is 6 inches from your head at 35, 40 miles an hour. Cox Road is like that. It's a dangerous road right now. No matter what you guys do, if you stripe it one way or the other, making it wider is going to make it safer. You're going to have a safer road. For cycling, and that's what we want, is just some room. There's a lot of dangerous roads in Auburn. Auburn is not, and I'll disagree slightly with some of the people here, is not bike friendly. It's not a city that advocates cycling. And I've cycled in other cities, and I ride around here, and it's somewhat dangerous. So what you do is you pick your streets, and you go like this, but we would love to go. When we cycle, we go anywhere from 10 to 40 or 50 miles. So we're not going to ride around in a circle around town. We want to go out in the country, and we want to go in some of the roads, and that's why there should be basically a route around Auburn. And that's kind of what you're doing here with Cox Road. You're making part of that road. It is a connector, Tommy. I understand exactly what you're saying. But, you know, I think we need to really think about, do we want to be a city that advocates cycling, or do we not want to do that? Because right now it looks like we're not doing that. We're kind of, okay, this is a car-only road. Well, I think you can do both. And I, you know, if you were to ask me right now what you should do, you should have a center lane, two regular lanes, and 2 6-foot bike lanes. That should have been in the planning, because right now I think that's going to be an extremely busy street anyway with what's being developed. So, you know, I'm here to advocate for the bike lanes. No matter what you do, I think you're doing a great job just widening it, and I think you need to do that for Wire Road and a whole lot of other roads. So,
thank you, Dan. While you're saying there, Megan, let me ask a question. You mentioned the possibility of doing everything. We couldn't do that because the right-of-way, there wasn't enough right-of-way.
I definitely was in economic development when this decision was made about widening this road, and not in this current role, but I'll have City Engineer Frazier explain the nuances and why it's not currently wider than it is.
It goes back to the traffic analysis that we did in 2019 to determine if 2 lanes would be sufficient with the bike lanes, as opposed to 3 lanes and or 4 lanes. Based on the volumes, 2 lanes is sufficient for the foreseeable future.
But Allison, also to that end, from a staff perspective, I mean, you got study as one piece of it, but there were other challenges, and if you were just going to make it wider, not only increasing cost, but you would have to acquire a tremendous amount of right-of-way.
Yes, with the non-curb and gutter section, you have to have side ditches, so we would have needed additional right-of-way to make it wider than it is now.
all right, one final comment. We know what's dangerous. We also know what's safe, and there are roads that you would think aren't safe at all. They're very safe. A lot of them are 4 lanes. Have a nice broad shoulder that's paved on the side. Bicyclists love that. We can go with the traffic. Everyone stays away from us. Even if there's a number of us, we can pop out into that lane. People can go around us fairly easily. So we know what's safe and we know what's not safe. And Cox Road is not safe. And I think a bike lane, what a bike does, and I'm running out of time, it actually protects the cyclist. People follow the lanes. They do. We know that 2 white lines, they're not going to get out of the way if you have a center lane. I've been involved in situations like that. You're going to be 2 feet into the lane. I tell my wife, I tell my kids when they ride a bike, don't ride on the side of the road when a car's coming. You got to go out. You got to make him see you. You got to have a flashing light. You got to make him slow down and go around you, because if not, he's going to pass you at 40 miles an hour and be very close. All right. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Good job, fellas.
Sir, I believe someone over here. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name's Tim McDonald, live at 919 Cherokee. Y'all can probably tell this is my very first council meeting.
You're good, man. It's all good.
But I'm a cyclist. Been cycling
Could you
here-
step forward near to the microphone, please? Yeah, thank you.
Been a cyclist here in town for many years, and I just want to mention one thing that our manager, Ms. Crouch, mentioned, that was a country road at one time, just like the person that lived there. I used to cycle down it all the time, and it was a great route, many times, and I stopped when the interchange went in and the traffic levels just went up. It became, a madhouse, and I just want to say that putting lines out there, I don't care which lines you put there, it's probably still going to be a madhouse. I probably won't ride down it anymore. It's just not. I mean, it gets to a few places I want to get to on a bicycle, but it's not a great thing. It's not a route I'm going to use all the time. But I want to reemphasize what the previous speaker said, that this I look at as an opportunity for our city to support cycling, alternative transportation. I love cycling. I can't live without it. And I commute on my bicycle to work. I ride, 3 or 4 times a week out in the country. I want to be able to get out in the country safely and enjoy it. So anything y'all do to support that, I'm in favor of. Thank you for everything that y'all do. I know you have the best interest in the city in your hearts, and appreciate what you do. Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Tim. And come back and see us again.
I will.
Who'll be next? Anyone? Okay, we'll move forward. City Manager's Communications.
All right, Mayor, under City Manager's Communications, I'd like to announce 3 vacancies on the Auburn Downtown Redevelopment Authority. Appointments will be on the July 6, 2021 meeting. Now it's time for the consent agenda, and that's our first item of business this evening. Does any council member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda and deal with that item individually?
Anyone? Council? Okay. If not, is there a move to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Under ordinances this evening, item 9A1 is the second reading of a request from Hubert Boatwright to annex approximately 1.76 acres located at the northeast corner of Cox Road and Interstate 85. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this request at its April 8th, 2021 meeting.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from the council? All right, seeing or hearing none, we'll still do a roll call on this, right? Ms. Crouch?
It is an ordinance, Lindsay, that's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Lindsay?
Dawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Griswold,
Yes, ma'am.
Hovey,
Yes, ma'am.
Parsons,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes, ma'am.
Taylor,
Yes.
Witten,
Yes.
Anders.
Yes.
Item 9A2 is the second reading of a request from Harry and Allison Painter to annex approximately 33.47 acres located located at the northeast corner of Cox Road and Interstate 85. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this request at its April 8th, 2021 meeting.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any questions or comments from the council? Okay, seeing or hearing none, Lindsay with a roll call.
Griswold,
Yes, ma'am.
Hovey,
Yes, ma'am.
Parsons,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes, ma'am.
Taylor,
Yes.
Witten,
Yes.
Dawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Anders.
Yes.
Item 9A3 is a request from Michael Allen Homes Incorporated to annex approximately 13.27 acres located on Lee Road